This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net and Avoid the Maze, your journey through life. I have a very interesting guest on today. And why I say interesting is that I'm sure when he was a young child, even a young man, he probably saw his life much different than it is today. But he's been on a journey, and his journey is his passion. And his passion is telling all of us we too can do what makes us happy. And I love over your head onto the side, it says City of Happiness. And I have a feeling, oh, simplicity of happiness. And happiness can be that simple. So, Florian, give us a little bit of background. Tell my listeners who you are and how you got to be this wonderful individual you are today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Karen. And before I start with that, I am currently on a small, medium-sized sailing yacht in the Mediterranean on an island called Elba in Italy. And I have two dogs on the boat today. So there might be some background noise if somebody else is passing by. Just so you know, I am in my office, but my office and my kitchen and my living place is very close together these days.
Okay.
And in fact, where I am right now is not that far away from the life that I had in mind when I was a child. But a lot happened in between. When I was a child, I loved all these books about adventure, outdoors, explorers. As soon as I started reading, you could give me a book, and the biggest fear that my parents had were that I wasn't getting enough sleep because I kept reading under my bed or under my
Yeah.
pillow with the headlamp on because I just wanted to get to the end of that story. And then I learned that life isn't all fun, that you have to work for your life, that you have to make a living, that you have to pay for a living, that you need to get married, a proper education, a job for your life. And at some point, I had no idea what that could be because I was interested in almost everything. And then when I went to school in Europe, and especially in Germany, you have some major classes, and most of these are like language and mathematics. Yeah, I think it's mainly language and mathematics. And there you needed to do a lot of homework, and I skipped the homework, so I wasn't really that good in these classes. And everything else, I was a straight A because I was interested in sports and philosophy and history and biology and physics and all of that because I thought it's like more like a game. And I had no idea how I could turn that game into a living, how I could fit that game into a proper job. And then I did you have to do some kind of civil service when you are, back then you had to do that instead of military in Germany. And I worked for a year in a national park and I did some frog counting and bird watching and stuff like that. And then I thought I'm studying something into that direction because it felt like I could probably find a job later on where I spent my days outdoors. And when I'm looking at my former students or colleagues at university, they all ended up in an office. And me, halfway through, I changed course because I failed again statistics. I failed it 3 times because I was on a bit of an adventure. I founded a company. I opened up a small restaurant, and all of a sudden it was too much work. It was exactly in the exam season that I needed to do the job because employees were sick. Stuff that happens when you are
Right.
self-employed, and I failed statistics, and then they kicked me out of of university, and I was blocked for German white. And then I panicked because I thought I'm way too old, and I can't study anything else. My life is basically ruined, and I was 24 by that time. I thought now I just need to get some money, and I just started jobbing. And I worked for an American-based company as a researcher for an executive search company. And I worked there about 6 weeks. And them being American, they didn't care about me not having an exam. They gave me a consultant contract. And then I worked for several years as a consultant in an executive search firm. And that's when I thought, now I just have to get rich and famous and successful. And then I can finally start living the life that I always wanted. I can just travel the world because I've proven to the world that I'm worth it. Now that I'm rich and famous and I have all that money, and I thought that if I marry the prettiest woman that I met by that time and have the biggest apartment that I could afford, then everybody else will see how successful I am. And then I just have to stick to that plan for another 10 or 15 years. And then the world is mine. And I felt miserable. I felt like I have to work to live in an apartment that I don't see from the inside because I'm working all of the time. My marriage was failing, and I was lacking fun and excitement. And at some point, I realized that I'd rather run away barefoot than stay in that situation. And then Lehman Brothers happened, and that was in 2008. Well, for those of you who don't remember, it was one of the biggest American-based investment banks, and I worked as a headhunter in the investment banking industry. And all of a sudden, all my clients went out of business, and I basically lost the job. I lost my income. I lost my marriage. I lost the love of life way before, and that was the point when I realized that maybe to prove somebody else something that I don't want in the first place, to then be allowed to live the life that I want, might not be the smartest, because eventually I'll be dead. And so why not go for the life that I love right now and figure it out on the way? And that's when I started to, I did a coaching training, started to work as a coach. I worked for one of the most renowned business schools of the world. It's called ESCP Europe in Paris. I was the career service consultant for them, and I started to be on the move most of the time. And I asked myself, what is it that I want? What is my inner motivation? And I found out about that sport is for me not only a leisure activity, but sports is something that is giving me a motivation and it's giving me energy. And through that, through the coaching, through the sport, I started to focus on what I want in the first place. And all of a sudden, I had these feelings again in my life, the feelings of love and excitement, and joy, and I wanted more of that. And that is how slowly but surely my life shifted away, because I had seen a glimpse at the end of the tunnel, and I wanted to have more of that. And so I did not have a plan back then, but I had an idea of how I want my life to feel. And then I saw small opportunities to go less into the office, to work from a cafe. When I have to travel to Paris, I always did that on a Thursday or on a Friday, and then I traveled 3 or 4 days to the sea in France, and I started taking sailing lessons, and I made my license. When I had the chance to move to Switzerland, I did that. And then I was on a vacation in Africa, and I had always dreamed about Africa. And I saw the opportunity to start a small business there. And then I did that, and I moved there, and I kept working from there. So looking back, it seems like a master plan. But while doing it, I had no idea what I was doing. And I for sure did a lot of decisions that didn't turn out right. But looking back, I can barely remember them because they were just testing this out. Oh, doesn't feel right. Testing that out feels a bit better. Testing the third thing out. Oh, that's it. And then I stuck with that. While doing it, it felt like most of the things that I'm doing are not working out for me. Looking back, it was a combination of things that did work out. And my main motivation was freedom, excitement, and outdoors, basically. I realized I don't want to be inside a building. I don't want to be inside of an office. I don't want to look at a wall when I'm working. So right now, I'm sitting in the boat. Somebody's swimming outside. The sun is shining, and I'm just at the end of a full work day.
And and
that's my life.
Yeah, and as I'm hearing your story, Florian, all of us can do this. Now, we all need to put food on our table, a roof over our head, but what you did it in steps, okay? And maybe the first couple of steps probably weren't the best for you, at least mentally, because you didn't want to be doing the type of work you were doing. But you thought you had to do that to make the money to be where you are today. But the reality of it is, all those things you did taught you how to get to where you are.
And I think that is super, super important for everybody who's struggling right now. I am struggling. I am currently struggling. There are things that are not working out. About a year ago, I lost my entire Africa business because, because I fell in love with a woman who betrayed me. I had no idea that's possible, but I fell in love with a con artist. So that was completely unbelievable for me before that, and she just stripped me of everything I had there, and I hated it. You cannot believe how much I blame myself for that. To build up so much, put up years of work into that, build up something in East Africa where business is really difficult, and then losing all of that in a matter of weeks when it escalated, and I had no chance to get it back. Nobody, I mean, no law enforcement, no laws at all, no judges. I was just helpless, and I beat myself up for that. And I had been in other situations where I lost things that I built up before, and I wondered, how can it be that I'm in this position again? How can I have done the same mistake? It wasn't the same mistake, but it was a similar enough mistake that I thought stupid, or that I thought that I'm too stupid to just be successful. And today I can say, yeah, even that mistake last year was important to me because it taught me a lesson. And that, I think, is the most important. It's not about what happens to you, but what you make out of this in life.
And, so many of us don't understand that because we're brought up to do certain things. Our parents want us to have a better life than what they had. So they have us, you've got to go to school and you've got to do this and you've got to do all these things. And I can so relate to some of the things that you've been talking about because I did not like school. I didn't like going to school, but I had to go to school. I struggled. Certain subjects just came to me. And yes, I could get good grades. And other subjects meant nothing to me. Taking biology and having to, slit open a frog was like, why? I'm never going to be a doctor. I don't need to do this.
Mm.
But I got through those things. And now I can look back and realize there were certain things I had to learn. And one was learn what I didn't like to do
Yeah.
and figure out what I do like to do. And like you, I've worked jobs in the past that's what they were. They were jobs. I was making money. But at the end of the day, I didn't even know what it was like outside because I left at 6 o'clock in the morning and came home at 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And that was life. But when you finally say to yourself, I can't take this anymore, you have to start being mindful of what it is you want and
Yeah.
create a plan. And if you make a mistake like you did, you learn from it and you go forward.
Yeah. And I think that is something that I learned along my coaching journey. Even if you feel miserable, you don't have to take a decision. It is still an option that you have. And an expression that I use very often is, for those of you who love sports, if you if there's a failing sports team, be it soccer or basketball or football, and the owners decide that it you can't continue like this because you're in a downward spiral, and there's a new coach hired. The coach doesn't blame himself for what happened in the last year. He doesn't blame himself for the bad position that they are in, because he's joining the team today and he's looking at the opportunities that he has with the team that he finds there. And so he's just trying to, I mean, either stay on that position or get a little bit better. But he's working with what he finds. He doesn't blame himself for the lack of players or
Right.
for the position where they are. And imagine that you were that coach taking over your life today without blaming yourself for what happened in the past, but seeing the opportunities that lie ahead of you. And imagine you woke up in your, somebody else woke up in your shoes today and had to take that decision. And then the logical consequence out of this is, well, I am waking up in my shoes every day, and all I can work with is what I have right now, and all I have to work with is the future. And therefore, it can be helpful to say, I have made these bad decisions, and these are the ones that I don't want to repeat. These are the bad decisions that maybe even taught me a very valuable lesson about um, um, a behavior or a skill that I didn't have before, or just a mindset that I didn't have before. So
Exactly.
it's not about what happens to you. It's always about what you make out of this right now. And if other people meet you right now, they only see well the development that you have from now going forward. And that is, I think, the most valuable mindset that you can have. And I struggle with that sometimes. I struggled with that last year because I fell into that hole and I only look backwards. And it's always a choice. And sometimes we feel miserable and we are not taking a progressive step forward because we don't make the choice for that. And that is still okay.
Well, and I'm so glad that you're pointing this out because there are so many individuals out there like you who don't want to talk about the mistakes, but the mistakes are important because we all make them. We're not going to
Mm-hmm.
get through this life without making mistakes. We're not going to get through this life without having bad moments in our life. We're all going to have something that we're going to grieve about.
Mm-hmm.
And when you accept that and you say, okay, but I don't have to stay in this sadness. What can I do? And I know when I was forced out of corporate America, my first reaction was, who am I? What am I going to do? Who's going to want to hire me? And I decided,
Nobody,
yeah,
nobody.
yeah. But I decided that I wanted to hire me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what made the difference for me, because then when I was looking for freelance work, I was telling people why they wanted me. Whereas before, I was waiting for them to tell me why they wanted
Mm-hmm.
me. And there is a difference. And so it's being mindful of what is going on around you and knowing that you're not always going to have the positive thoughts. So here you are out in the Mediterranean, and most of us listening would give our right hand to be on a boat in the Mediterranean. So, what do you tell those people who are sitting here listening, going, okay, Florian did it, but I can't?
Well, first of all, that's just a story that you tell yourself. I think if I can do it, everybody else could as well. Much more important is, are you really willing to? Everything comes with a price. So I can't go into my office now to have a like proper work environment. Um, for the last days, my boat was shaking, and I felt miserable throughout the day because it kept shaking because there was just weather and wind and waves. So everything comes with a price. And what is it? What price are you willing to pay? And don't ask yourself, that you should be able to be in my shoes. Ask yourself, where do you want to be? And are you willing to pay the price for that? Because everything will come with a price tag.
You are absolutely correct.
And there's one, so maybe as a final thought or a final question. Imagine that you are meeting either your best friend or me or your children in 25 years, and you're sitting at a beautiful place, be it at a campfire outside, be it on the boat, be it on the beach, be it in a nice lobby somewhere, and you're having the night of your life. What is the story that you want to tell about the last 25 years?
I love that.
And then ask yourself, what is the tiniest step that you can take today that brings you one step further? And if you do that every day, your life will transform. And I have no idea in which direction, by the way.
Well, if you don't take the steps, you don't have the chance to move forward. And my father used to tell my brothers and myself that on a daily basis. If we felt bad about something, he'd say, what can you do? Take a step, go forward. You're the only one who can change it. He said, I can stand here and I can cheer you on, but you have to be the one. And it took me a long time to get that into my thick skull. And when I did, it made a huge difference. So I get to meet people like you. I get to share your stories with my listeners. If my listeners want to find you, how can they find you?
Oh, well, can they see me with video or audio only?
We are both video and audio, so they get to see your handsome face.
So if it's video, you can just read behind me "Simplicity of Happiness," and otherwise, if you just enter "Simplicity of Happiness" in the search engine of your choice, you'll find my website, and there I have a podcast and a couple of information and a contact button, and I am always reading and answering to all requests and emails myself.
Well, we'll make sure that's all in the show notes so people can find you. And I hope you have a beautiful day out in the Mediterranean. Thank
Thank
you
you very
so
much,
much.
Karen.
Bye-bye
Yes,
now.
take care. All the best. Bye.
See you.